All right, guys, just a real quick video to go with this little write-up on the Bullhead fishing blog. I wanted to come up with a method where I could actually take my rod and put it down and not constantly hold it. And bullhead are pretty aggressive little catfish. So even with I can't go much larger. This is a number 2 Eagle Claw bait holder. And I can't go much larger than that with the smaller bullheads. There's a photo in the write-up that shows a fairly large one that certainly could use a larger hook, but we're catching a lot of fish for the aquaponics system in our research that are 6 inches, and if you go much larger than this, even with the big mouth of a bullhead, you're not going to be able to get those hookups. And we actually want those smaller fish. The problem is even those smaller fish were taking this big hook and they were swallowing down their gullet. Now, if you're cleaning fish, it's not really a big deal. You can just get in there with a hook remover or a pair of needle nose and just go ahead and extract that hook and go ahead and process the fish, and it's not a big deal. But if you're trying to either release fish or you're trying to put them into a tank and keep them alive, tearing out their guts doesn't work. So what I wanted to do is come up with a way to tight line that would, when that fish took this bait, would go ahead and set the hook. And that way I could run more than one rod at a time so I could catch little perch and stuff like that. So I went back to an old school method, maybe a little beefed up compared to the size of the fish here. This would be something more like I'd use in surf fishing and light surf. But this is a 1/2 ounce casting weight, and I have it going to a snap swivel. But you can see that weight is not actually tied on. It has the line going through it, so the line will pull straight through it. So what happens is we set this rod somewhere, up against a chair or in a rod holder, where the line is tight against the bottom like that. And then this bait's hanging here. And because this weight's relatively heavy compared to, let's say, the size of a catfish, it doesn't matter if he takes it and he runs straight away with it, or he runs off to the side with it, or even if he runs back at it. Any way he runs, it's going to pull against this like a little anchor. And then the tension in the tip of the rod is going to just kind of embed that hook into him. And this weekend, and there's a picture of, like I said, a pretty big cat. He's probably close to 3 pounds, which is big for a bullhead that was caught using this method. But I caught about 7 other small ones, and I didn't gut hook any of them with this rig. I don't know that I got as many hookups being kind of lazy and letting the rod sit in the rod holder, but I got plenty of hookups with very little work. I also got off using hot dog and started taking some of the small perch, bluegill, sunfish, whatever you want to call them, cutting them up and using cut bait, because the little pond I'm fishing in apparently has a lot of bullheads and different sunfishes in it, but there must not be very many bass because the little sunfish are swimming way out in the middle of the pond where the bullheads are, and with seeming very little fear. So even when I was in deeper water on the bottom, the little perch were going out there and pecking the hot dog off. By cutting them up, they can peck at it, but it gives it enough time that you're able to pick up catfish. So if you've been like me and been big on the lightest gear you can for bullheads because they are smaller fish, give this method a try, especially if you're having a problem with the guys, the little guys swallowing the hook on you. And this will let you run maybe, depending on how fast the action is, 2 or 3 rods at a time. I think in an actual, I just had them sitting against the back of a chair. I think in an actual rod holder where you've got the angle of the rod high, you could be running 2 or 3 or 4 rods even if you wanted to go that far, especially with a couple people keeping an eye on them, and pretty much allow self hookups. A lot of people have talked about circle hooks, and circle hooks are great when you have the rod in your hand. When it comes to bullheads, though, you're talking about smaller fish, and I've not had a lot of luck with the really small circle hooks. Generally, I'm looking at something, kind of with a gaff about like that in it for larger fish like snook and things like that. Anyway, give it a shot. Let us know how it works for you. And remember, if you have not yet joined the Bullhead group on Facebook, please consider doing so. If you're reading the write-up and seeing this video embedded in it, there'll be a little spot right down there at the bottom with a picture of a fish, a Facebook fish. You can click that and get on over there. Anyway, hope you guys had a good weekend. I know I did, and mine's not quite over yet.